So I want you to picture like a massive railway switchyard.
Okay, sure.
You've got this colossal, heavy freight train thundering down the tracks at full speed, right? And it's carrying the weight of entire nations.
High stakes.
Exactly. Now picture a single tiny metal lever on the track ahead. If that lever is flipped just, I don't know, a fraction of an inch, the train roars off toward an entirely different continent.
Right, but if it stays put, it just crashes into a dead end.
Yeah. It's crazy because massive historical trajectories often hinge on these minute, like almost invisible details, a delayed memo or a sudden illness, even just a moment of hesitation in a crowded room.
It is a really striking visual, honestly, and it captures the essence of the year 1923 perfectly.
Right.
When you look closely at that specific 12-month window, you see a year defined entirely by those tiny, fateful switches. I mean, we are talking about a brief period where the entire history of the 20th century could have been radically altered.
But the levers were pulled just a moment too late.
Yeah, exactly. Or they were pushed in the completely wrong direction.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're bringing you right into that critical window of 1923.
It's a fascinating year.
It really is. We are going to examine Vladimir Lenin's final, unfinished political battle, a devastatingly missed revolution in Germany, and the courageous but ultimately tragic founding of the left opposition.
Right, and we're drawing all of this from some incredible primary documents.
Yeah, specifically looking at Episode 7, Part 2 of the documentary series In Defense of October.
Yeah.
It focuses on the bomb that never exploded.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission today is to show you exactly how the fate of the Russian Revolution was sealed by this combination of internal bureaucratic rot and international hesitation.
And just to be clear for you listening, as we dig into these primary documents today, we are examining these historical dynamics strictly as they unfold in the source material.
Right, completely neutral.
Exactly. We're looking at the mechanics of these events to understand why these figures made the choices they did. We're not endorsing any specific political faction, We're just here to analyze the history piece by piece.
Perfect. Yes, we are here for the mechanics. So, to understand how this whole machine starts to break down, we need to set the scene in Moscow, early 1923.
Okay, let's go there.
So Vladimir Lenin, the architect of the revolution, is basically living on borrowed time. He's already suffered severe strokes, but from his sickbed, he launches these two final articles.
And they're blistering, right?
Oh, totally. A blistering attack on the swollen state bureaucracy. Specifically, he targets this organ called the Workers' and Peasants' Inspection, or Rabkrin, which is being run by Joseph Stalin.
Right.
And the Politburo is so terrified by these articles that they actually propose printing a dummy, single copy of the newspaper Pravda.
Which is just wild to think about.
I know. Just one fake copy to show the ailing Lenin, just to trick him into thinking his critiques were published so he'd stop bothering them.
Yeah, the sheer audacity of that proposal tells you everything you need to know about the atmosphere in Moscow at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the leadership was completely enveloped in intrigue. They recognized Lenin's immense political authority, sure, but they were already treating him as an obstacle to be managed.
Like a patient to be pacified rather than a leader to be followed.
Exactly.
It sounds like a modern corporate board trying to gaslight a dying founder, like printing a single fake annual report just to keep him quiet while they divide up the company's assets.
That's actually a really good analogy.
But this brings up a crucial question about the mechanics of power here.
Mm-hmm.
I get that Stalin was gaining influence, but why was his post at Rabkrin such a unique threat?
Right. Why that specific office?
Yeah. Why was a seemingly boring inspection office the specific hill Lenin chose to fight on?
Well, to understand that, you have to look at what Rabkrin was originally designed to do versus what it actually became.
Yeah.
Mechanically, it was supposed to be the ultimate auditing body. Its mandate was to inspect the state apparatus, root out corruption, and prevent the growth of a permanent bureaucracy.
But I'm guessing it didn't do that.
Now, under Stalin's control, the mechanism was completely inverted. Because Rabkrin had the power to inspect every department, Stalin used it to evaluate personnel.
Oh, wow. So he turned it into a massive patronage machine.
Precisely. He was placing his own loyalists across the entire state and party apparatus.
So instead of fighting the bureaucracy, Rabkrin was the engine creating it.
Yeah. Lenin realized, far later than he would have liked, that Stalin was using this dry, technical, administrative role to amass vast personal power.
Mm-hmm.
He was building this system of mutual shielding among appointed officials where, loyalty to the general secretary mattered way more than political principles.
And then, on March 5, 1923, we hit the breaking point. The political battle shifts from, an administrative critique into something deeply personal.
Right, because of what Lenin finds out.
Yeah, Lenin learns a secret that the rest of the leadership had been keeping from him for months.
This is such a dramatic moment. 3 months earlier, Stalin had subjected Lenin's wife, Nadezhda Krupskaya, to just a torrent of extreme verbal abuse over the telephone.
Wait, really? He verbally abused his wife?
Yeah, Stalin was furious that she had allowed Lenin, who was supposed to be resting, to dictate a political letter to Leon Trotsky.
Oh, I see.
So Krupskaya had hidden this abuse from Lenin because she feared the stress of the confrontation would literally kill him. But on March 5, Lenin finally uncovered the truth.
And here's where it gets really intense. Lenin doesn't just get angry, he goes to war. He actually sat down and dictated a letter to Stalin that same day.
He didn't mince words.
Not at all. He basically told him that a line had been crossed and demanded an immediate apology or a total severing of ties. The verbatim text from the source reads, and I'll quote it exactly, "You've been so rude as to summon my wife to the telephone and use bad language. I ask you, therefore, to think it over whether you are prepared to withdraw what you have said and to make your apologies, or whether you prefer that relations between us should be broken off."
I mean, a total break in personal and political relations. It is a stunning ultimatum.
Yeah.
And Lenin didn't stop there. On the exact same day, March 5, he reached out to Trotsky to form a political alliance to take Stalin down regarding his aggressive policies in Georgia.
Right. The second letter. He sends this to Trotsky, and it reads verbatim. "It is my earnest request that you should undertake the defense of the Georgian case in the party CC. This case is now under persecution by Stalin and Dzerzhinsky, and I cannot rely on their impartiality."
By sending that, the battle lines were officially drawn. Lenin's secretary, Fadeyeva, even told Trotsky that Lenin was preparing a, quote, bomb for Stalin at the upcoming party congress.
He was gathering a massive dossier to completely disqualify Stalin from leadership.
Yeah, exactly. He was preparing to pull the lever and switch the tracks.
But the bomb never drops.
It never drops. 4 days later, on March 9, Lenin suffers a massive third stroke.
Oh, man.
The physical damage is catastrophic.
Yeah.
He entirely loses his ability to speak and write. His political life just ends in that single instant.
And with Lenin suddenly silenced, the internal fight against the bureaucracy stalls completely. The dossier remains locked away.
Yeah. And this is where the causality of these events becomes so crucial. Because the anti-bureaucracy fight in Moscow is suddenly paralyzed by Lenin's stroke, the survival of the Soviet Union suddenly depends entirely on a rescue from the outside.
Because the Bolsheviks always believed their backward, isolated economy couldn't survive indefinitely without a revolution in an advanced industrialized nation.
Right. So in the summer of 1923, all eyes shift to Germany. That becomes the decisive theater.
And the situation in Germany that summer was escalating into total, unprecedented chaos. French and Belgian troops had militarily occupied the Ruhr region.
Which was the industrial heartland of Germany.
Exactly, to violently enforce unpaid war reparations from World War I.
And the German government's response is what sets off the powder keg. They call for passive resistance.
Meaning what exactly?
Well, they tell the German workers in the Ruhr to go on strike and refuse to work for the occupying forces. But to pay the wages of these striking workers, the government just starts printing money.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they are printing cash with absolutely no economic output to back it up.
Which triggers apocalyptic hyperinflation. I mean, the underlying mechanism of the economy is simply shattered.
It really did. To put the numbers in perspective, in January of 1923, the German mark traded at 21,000 to the US dollar.
Okay, which is already bad.
Right, but by the end of the year, it was nearly 6 trillion marks to a single dollar.
Oh my God. I want you listening to really imagine the physical reality of this. An egg cost 300 marks in February. By early August, that same egg cost 12,000 marks. 3 days later, it cost 30,000 marks.
Think of it like a terrifying high-stakes game of musical chairs, but the chairs are disappearing by the hour.
Yeah.
A worker's wages became mathematically worthless within hours of receiving them. Family members would wait at the factory gates on payday, grab the bundles of cash from their spouses, and literally sprint to the nearest shop to buy anything physical, a loaf of bread, a tool, a piece of coal, before the money lost its value the next morning.
I mean, it's absolute societal collapse. It's like a catastrophic modern technological crash where digital assets plummet to zero overnight. But this is physical cash.
Right. The literal unit of survival lost all meaning in a matter of hours.
And the middle class is entirely wiped out. People who had saved money in bank accounts their whole lives woke up to find their life savings couldn't buy a cup of coffee.
It's devastating.
And this economic obliteration causes a massive political shift. Workers abandon the moderate Social Democratic Party, the SPD, and they just flood into the Communist Party, the KPD. In August, a spontaneous wave of strikes breaks out that actually topples the Kuno government in Germany.
So this social collapse created a textbook, perfect revolutionary situation. The ruling class was paralyzed, the middle class was ruined and looking for radical solutions, and the working class was ready to fight.
Which leads directly to the pivotal question of 1923.
Yeah.
How did the revolutionary leadership in Moscow and Berlin respond to this massive opportunity?
Well, this is where we see two completely opposing strategies collide. You have Stalin in Moscow advising restraint.
Restraint.
Yeah, he argues that they should hold back, that the German communists should not take the offensive, and that it is actually an advantage if the fascists strike first.
But Trotsky insists the situation is ripe right now. He demands they fix a strict date, specifically November 9, and organize military preparations immediately.
Trotsky recognized that a revolutionary situation is incredibly fragile. It's not a permanent state of being, you can't just wait for it to organically blossom into victory while the society is dissolving.
Right.
He was fighting against a deeply fatalistic mindset within the leadership, the idea that history will just do the work for them.
I want to push back on that, though, because it brings up a core philosophical question about their whole ideology. Isn't the entire point of Marxism that objective historical forces dictate the outcome?
Well, it's more nuanced than that.
Like, if the economic conditions are right, why is Trotsky acting like the entire revolution depends on one guy circling a date on a calendar? Why is he treating it like a military operation rather than a historical inevitability?
That is the crucial tension of 1923. You are touching on the Marxist dialectic here. Trotsky argued that while you absolutely need the objective crisis, the hyperinflation, the ruined middle class, the strikes, those conditions alone only create the opportunity. They don't guarantee the victory. To actually take power, you need the subjective factor. A leadership that is decisive, organized, and willing to strike at the exact right moment.
So the objective crisis just builds the train, but someone still has to physically pull the lever.
Exactly. And Trotsky warned them about relying purely on historical forces. His argument was very clear, quote, "If revolution is to be more than a confused perspective, if it is to be the main task, one has to make it a practical organizational task. One has to fix a date, prepare, and fight."
So they finally agree to set the date. The German communists build momentum. We reach October 21 at a massive conference in the city of Chemnitz.
The KPD has a 2/3 majority of factory councils ready to call a general strike and launch the uprising. The moment has arrived.
But then the KPD leader, Heinrich Brandler, cancels the entire insurrection.
Yeah, he just calls it off.
Because the left-wing Social Democrats, who were in a temporary coalition with him, refused to sign the declaration.
Right.
And the ultimate tragedy is that only the city of Hamburg missed the cancellation memo. They rise up, they fight alone for 3 days, and they are brutally crushed.
Brandler's hesitation at Chemnitz is one of the most consequential decisions of the century. He had the objective majority, but his subjective leadership failed.
I want to play devil's advocate for a second. Isn't it just basic political sense for Brandler to secure coalition support before launching an armed uprising?
You'd think so, in normal times.
Right. It feels like a cautious manager waiting for total consensus in a boardroom. But I guess the building was on fire.
That's exactly how Trotsky analyzed it. Waiting for peacetime consensus during a revolutionary crisis guarantees defeat. The left-wing Social Democrats had already demonstrated a track record of retreating in critical moments. By making the revolution contingent on their approval, Brandler essentially handed veto power over the working class to the very people least likely to actually fight.
He blinked. He had the majority, but he wanted a guarantee. And by waiting for a guarantee, the window closed. The train rolls past the switch.
And the consequences of missing that German October were catastrophic. It allowed the German bourgeoisie to survive the hyperinflation crisis and stabilize its rule. But more importantly for our narrative, it fatally isolated the Soviet Union. If Germany had turned socialist, Russia would have immediately gained an advanced, industrialized ally to help rebuild its shattered economy.
But because Germany failed, Russia remains economically backward and completely surrounded by hostile powers. And this external failure rebounds right back to Moscow.
Right. The isolation exacerbates the internal crisis, which sets the stage for Trotsky's final stand in the autumn of 1923.
So we return to Moscow, and the Soviet economy is suffocating under a phenomenon they call the scissors crisis.
Yeah, the scissors crisis.
The sources describe this as a massive widening gap between soaring industrial prices and crashing agricultural prices. But I need you to explain this mechanically.
Sure.
I get that the price is separated on a graph like an open pair of scissors, but mechanically, how does a country end up with dirt-cheap food but wildly expensive manufactured goods in the first place?
It basically comes down to the speed of post-war recovery. After the Russian Civil War, peasant agriculture was relatively quick to recover. A peasant farmer essentially just needs seeds, basic tools, and a season of good weather to start producing food again.
Makes sense.
So agricultural output surged, flooding the market with food, which drove agricultural prices down.
Okay, the supply of food goes up, so the price drops. That tracks.
But heavy industry is totally different. Factories, railways, and steel mills had been bombed out and destroyed during years of war. You cannot just plant a seed and grow a steel mill.
Right.
Rebuilding industry takes years of massive capital investment, which Russia did not have. So the supply of manufactured goods like tractors, clothing, and plows remained incredibly low, which caused industrial prices to absolutely skyrocket.
So the peasants have plenty of cheap grain, but when they take it to the market to sell, the money they get can't buy a single pair of boots or a new plow because the industrial goods are astronomically expensive.
Exactly. So the peasants stop selling their grain because the money is useless to them.
Which means the cities start to starve.
Yeah, and the workers face terrible shortages. Strikes begin breaking out in major Russian cities. And in response to this complex economic emergency, Stalin's party apparatus does not open up a debate on how to fix industry.
No, they just completely stifle any internal discussion. They demand blind discipline and put a lid on it.
They treated economic crisis as a police problem.
And Trotsky realizes that the political suffocation of the party and this economic chaos are, like, intimately linked. So on October 8, he submits a deeply critical confidential letter to the Central Committee. And I want to read how he diagnosed this rot, because he perfectly captures the mechanism of the decay.
His diagnosis was incredibly sharp. He pointed directly to the patronage system we discussed earlier. He wrote, quote, "There has been created a very wide layer of party workers who are part of the apparatus of the state or the party and who simply refuse to hold any party opinions. Appointment from above in the party was not 1/10 as widespread as it is now."
Appointment from above. Meaning, you don't get your position because the workers elected you. You get it because the bureaucracy appointed you.
Right.
Therefore, your loyalty is to the bureaucracy, not the people. And regarding the economy, Trotsky's letter was just as ruthless. He wrote, "There is no direction of the economy. Chaos proceeds from the top."
Chaos proceeds from the top. It is a devastating indictment of Stalin's administrative methods, and Trotsky's letter was the catalyst. 1 week later, on October 15th, the Declaration of the 46 is submitted to the Politburo.
This is a massive document echoing Trotsky's critiques.
Yep.
And the people who signed it were not fringe figures.
Not at all.
No, these are the heavyweights. We're talking about the most eminent leaders and architectural pillars of the Bolshevik Party. You have Preobrazhensky, their top economic theorist. You have Pyatakov, who's essentially running heavy industry.
And Antonov of Cinco.
Yes, the legendary military hero who literally led the armed storming of the Winter Palace in 1917. These 46 brilliant figures put their names on the line, officially founding the left opposition.
But by doing so, they were declaring war on a machine that already controlled the levers of power, the appointments, and the secret police.
Which really makes me wonder about their strategy. If the apparatus was already this entrenched, if Stalin had already used Rabkrin to appoint his loyalists in every town and department, well, how did 46 people, no matter how brilliant, think a simple letter could defeat an entrenched administrative machine? I mean, it's like middle management in a massive modern corporation entirely insulating itself from the ground workers. A strongly worded letter doesn't usually fix that.
Right. But you have to remember, they were operating as Marxists. They understood the immense physical difficulty of dislodging a bureaucracy, but they believed that a political apparatus could only be defeated by mobilizing superior social forces. They were not trying to outmaneuver Stalin in a boardroom. They were trying to sound the alarm to awaken the working class. They believed that if they told the truth, if they explained exactly why the economy was failing and provided a clear political program to fix it, The masses could be roused to intervene and clear out the bureaucracy from below.
They were trying to provide the subjective leadership that was missing in Germany.
Yes. They recognized that what they were fighting was not just a collection of bad managers making poor decisions, but a conservative social layer that was actively consolidating its privileges at the expense of the revolution.
So does the alarm work? Do the people wake up in time to flip the switch?
Tragically, no. The exhaustion of the Russian working class after years of World War, Civil War, and famine, combined with the bitter demoralization following the sudden defeat in Germany, well, it meant the masses simply did not have the energy to rise up again.
That's heartbreaking.
The bureaucracy easily clamped down on the isolated opposition. Almost all 46 of these original signatories would eventually be murdered by Stalin in the purges of the 1930s. Antonov Ovsenko, Preobrazhensky, Pyatakov, they paid with their lives for this act of defiance.
Wow.
They told the truth when it was dangerous, and it brought this crucial historical window of 1923 to a dark and violent close.
Let's summarize what we've unpacked for you today. We traced Lenin's undelivered final strike against Stalin, the internal bomb that was silenced by a sudden stroke.
All right.
We examined the tragic hesitation at Chemnitz that aborted the German Revolution right when objective conditions were perfectly ripe for victory. And we witnessed the courageous, doomed formation of the left opposition as the finest minds of the revolution tried and failed to stop the bureaucratic machine.
If there is an overarching lesson from the documents of 1923, it is that objective conditions, no matter how severe, do not resolve themselves automatically. You can have the most catastrophic economic collapse, like the hyperinflation that destroyed the German middle class. But without decisive subjective leadership willing to act at the critical moment, the opportunity for change is lost. And the reaction that follows is often brutal.
And that is exactly why this history matters to you today. It proves that history is not an inevitable tide that just washes over us. It hinges on subjective human decisions, a refusal to set a date for action, a reliance on administrative command instead of open debate.
Or a catastrophic hesitation by leaders who want to guarantee while the world outside is burning.
Exactly. So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own. If extreme historical situations require both an objective, undeniable crisis and subjective, decisive leadership to actually force a change, well, what current global crises are simply waiting for the right or wrong leadership to finally tip the scales? Look closely at the institutions around you today. Where is that secretarial mindset paralyzing necessary action? When you examine the massive problems we face, you might just see those tiny levers in the switchyard waiting for someone to push them.